So this is the fifth and final part of my heavyweight ranking series. If you've watched the first four parts, I've listed my top 30 heavyweights as of January 2016. I'm going to finish up with part 5. I'm going to try and make this one shorter and just talk for a few minutes as to how I see these rankings changing and developing over the next 6 to 12 months, who I see exiting the top 30, who I see coming into the top 30, and which people I see moving up and down. Let me start by saying this is indeed exciting times for heavyweight boxing fans. The division has been much maligned over the last couple of years, but if we look at my rankings, and if you use them as some guideline, we've got the first and second ranked fighters in the heavyweight division, Fury and Klitschko, set to fight each other in the next 6 months. There is also strong expectation that the third and fourth ranked fighters, Deontay Wilder and Alexander Povetkin, will square off. So, in that sense, I don't think heavyweight boxing fans have too much to complain about. You know, top level competitive matchups at the very, very top of the division. Let's talk about who I see moving down, exiting. A lot of my guys who made the top 30 are guys who are very much in the autumn, potentially in the winter of their careers. You know, I've got guys in my top 30 like Antonio Tarver, Tony Thompson. These are guys in their mid-40s now. I've got lots of guys who are on a very similar level of form. Steve Cunningham, Glazkov, Malik Scott, Adamek. You know, lots of guys who are all sort of related by a single form line. But all of those guys are, well, maybe Glazkov excluded, you know, the likes of Cunningham, Adamek, Malik Scott. These are now guys in their 30s. They're mid to late 30s and sometimes. And these are guys who are traditionally now being used more as opponents and gatekeepers as opposed to active contenders. You know, I see a lot of those guys having to take fights against big up-and-comers to stay relevant. You know, Tony Thompson's done that before against the likes of David Price and Odilon Solis. Perhaps some of them can hold on, but I expect a number of those names in the sort of age 35 and above category to drop off. You know, there's a number of very, very, very hot prospects moving up in the heavyweight division. You know, I've mentioned the prospects who made my top 30, the likes of Joshua and Parker. Let's put those guys aside for a minute. Hughie Fury, Jarrell Miller, Dillian White, Andy Ruiz. You know, the list goes on. There's loads of guys who so far didn't make my top 30 rankings, but you're probably going to see those guys in the next 6 months, next 12 months, matched up against the Tony Thompsons, the Steve Cunninghams, the Thomas Ademics of this world. And that could see a real shift in the heavyweight division. You know, we could start to see an end of a top 20 in the heavyweight division that's dominated by older guys, and we can start to see younger, more athletic, more dynamic, faster guys coming through whose future is very, very bright. You know, we've seen. I've mentioned a few names there. I expect all of those guys with the potential to enter the top 30 and perhaps even enter the top 20 in the next 6 to 12 months. As for Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker, both of them possibly need to step up in terms of level of opposition. You know, neither of them have fought a legitimate, solid top 20 fighter. And if both of those guys do it in the next 6 months, we can see them start to move towards the top 10 and higher. You know, there's going to be a lot of people looking at Luis Ortiz. I know he's penciled in to fight Alexander Ustinov next, but can Luis Ortiz get a big opponent to boost himself up the ratings? And even if you look at the top 10, there's still guys there like Bryant Jennings, who's coming off 2 back-to-back losses, Bermain Stavern, who's coming off a loss to Wilder and a win where he just scraped through and got knocked down against Derek Rossi. You've also got you know, Carlos Takam, those sort of guys. I mean, will these guys be looking at those sort of individuals as names that they can use to catapult themselves into the top 10? Finally, we got the return of David Price. You know, I know David Price is a heavyweight who a lot of people criticise, but, you know, make no mistake, Price is a very, very big puncher, and he's only lost at a decent level in Tony Thompson and Erkan Tepe. He's going to be making a comeback, and don't be surprised to see David Price entering the top 30. I'd also like to see a resurgent Mike Perez, a guy who I'm a massive fan of, and a guy who I think has the skills, technical ability, and you know, just all-round boxing brain to cement himself as a top 10 competitor. He needs to come back from a bad loss. He needs to take the sport more seriously, but he can get back into the mix. Finally, Eddie Chambers is another name that I'd throw in. You know, I'd like to see Eddie Chambers fight a real opponent. It's been so long since we've last seen it. But trust me, on his day, Eddie Chambers, he can still be top 10. Let me know your thoughts on this. How do you see the heavyweight division and rankings changing in the next 6 months, 12 months, that sort of time frame? Many thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed this series, please give me the thumbs up. I'd appreciate it.